Uh, Welcome to Elgin Museum in Conversation. In this episode, we'll be talking with Moira Gregg, former regional archaeologist at Aberdeenshire Council and current chair of the Tayside and Fife Archaeological Committee, also known as TAFAC. Moira has a strong interest in archaeological aerial photography, and during her working life was responsible for photographing countless archaeological sites from the air across the northeast of Scotland, discovering new sites and recording known sites. She also established the Mason's Mark project in 2002, a project which she has continued to develop and be involved with. After retiring in 2011, Moira has continued her involvement in Scottish archaeology through TAFAC and Archaeology Scotland, where she's been on the board of directors since 2013, and after a year off has just returned to the board again. She's a fellow of the Society of Antiquaries of Scotland, has recently stepped down as treasurer of the Aerial Archaeological Research Group, Aerial Archaeology Research Group, too many archaeologies, and is a member of the CIFA, fellow of the Society of Antiquaries, a member of the CBA, and a member of Archaeology Scotland. So welcome, Moira, to In Conversation.
Thank you.
We always start at the beginning. What better place to start? So what is your earliest memory of or encounter with the historic environment?
Oh gosh, I think it was when I was maybe about 4, which was quite young. I vaguely remember being taken to a place with my parents while on a, I think it must have been either a day trip or an outing or something with local people. And all I can remember is this big arch entrance and walking into this dark room or something. I could never remember where it was until a few years ago I was doing a survey of Mason's marks at Cambuskenneth Tower, and that was where it was. Except it didn't look quite so big as it did when I was 4.
No, a little bit of a flashback though.
A flashback, I have to say, it certainly was, yes.
And was sort of archaeology, historic environment, was that part of your kind of growing up? Was it something that was part of your life, or was was it just something on the fringes of the occasional visit to a castle or something here or there?
Yeah, I like visiting castles and things. In my home, I was born and brought up on a farm, and the name of it was Balchristie, which can sort of mean home of Christians, and we were told that there had been an early Chaldee chapel there. So any time we're out in the field, I was always looking to see if I could find it, but I never did. So apart from that, no, I didn't have any direct involvement for a wee while into archaeology itself.
Well, for those who don't know, we work together in the archaeology department at Aberdeenshire Council. But I'm really interested to know how you got started in archaeology, because I'm not sure that we've had that conversation. So.
No, probably not. I actually interviewed you for your job, I think.
Yes. Twice, I think. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yes, I did. Yeah. So my introduction was in an odd way. I'd been at art college for a while, and my father took ill, and I had to come home and look after and run the farm. And I had an accident, and I had 2 black eyes and a broken nose, so I wasn't doing any work. And a friend said to me, would you like to come with me to see this excavation that's happening at London Links? So I went along with my friend, and it was an excavation of a burial site on the beach. And I vaguely knew the director of the excavation, so I went down. When he saw me, he said, "Oh, you're at art college, aren't you?" And I said, "Well, yes, I've been there." He said, "Would you like to draw my skeletons?" And that's how I got into archaeology. I was quite intrigued by the work. And then later on, he said, "Well, I'm doing an excavation up in the northeast of Scotland. Would you be interested in coming to it?" So I did, and I got the bug there, and basically didn't really look back. And then a few years later, I was approached by Ian Ralston, who said, "Look, I've got some money. Would you be willing to come to the university? This is at Aberdeen University. Would you come along, be a research assistant there?" So I went there for 2 years working with him. when the contract ended, about 6 months later, Ian Shepherd turned up on my doorstep and said, "I've got some money. Would you like to come and work for me on a short-term contract?" So I did, and the short-term contract started to expand into more short-term contracts, and then I ended up, full-term permanent, and that's been me there till I retired. So that's how I got into archaeology.
One site in particular our viewers might be familiar with that you were involved with is the Cully Khan Promontory Fort at Troop Head. I'm trying to remember.
Cully Khan.
Head, Garrison in Aberdeenshire, which was excavated in the 1960s and 70s, published in 2012. So can you tell us a little bit about that site, how you were involved in the work there?
Well, that was the very, very first excavation I ever went on to work on and learn about archaeology and techniques and things. And it so happens that the director suddenly became my husband later on, which was the same one. So never go to anybody who says, "Would you like to draw my skeletons?" That's a wrong opening.
So is it reader I married him? Yes.
Yeah, and it's a promontory fort near Pennon, and it's got from Neolithic basically almost right through until the last war. So because it had such a long, wide time periods, we eventually decided, because it was going to be published along with another promontory fort, which has still not been done yet, we decided, because we're waiting, we'd start to break it down. So we first published a 12th century structure that we found. And then later on, I published the castle site on the fort as well, on the site as well. And I am actually finished, well, I'm not finished, but I'm almost getting there with the prehistoric site. It's been a huge task for over, a long time, basically because I didn't have the time to work on it.
Yeah.
But lockdown has helped a lot.
Well, it's good to have something positive come out of lockdown. Yeah.
Yes, and I have done all my archiving, all other sites that I've excavated myself. They're all archived, but I can't get rid of the archive yet. I can't get it to Edinburgh. So I'm up to date with that.
Yeah. So how was it working on Cully Khan? That's quite a kind of exposed site, and it's quite a trek. I mean, there's a lovely car park at the top of the hill now, but I imagine when you were working there in the 60s and 70s, it was maybe a little less formalised. And
yes.
Are you carrying the kit down every day, or was it,
we had huts. We had huts on the site itself, so we could leave all the kits there, apart from cameras and things. But I was just a mere digger then. I wasn't anything else but a mere digger.
Yeah.
So it was, I learned a lot, and thank goodness I did. Got to know more about archaeology there and how to read sections and things.
Yeah.
But it wasn't all too far a trek. It wasn't too bad. Yeah, you've got pure cliffs round two sides, but quite a steep walk, and you can get down to the Cully Khan Bay down below. So we all went there at lunchtime to have a swim and wash, because there wasn't great water supplies in where we were all staying. So we ensured the diggers went for swims or paddles.
So were you digging there, I take it, or I hope you were digging there in the summer season rather than having winter swims?
Yes, no, it was summer season, yes.
I would expect it might have been quite unpleasant there on the top of that cliff in the depths of winter, mightn't it?
It could have some unpleasant days even in the summertime if you get no wind and heavy rain.
Yeah.
A lot of bailing went on
a
few times,
Yeah.
And because of the clay subsoil, it really got very kind of mucky in bits. But
so you definitely needed those swims.
Yes. Definitely.
So you were a regional archaeologist with Aberdeenshire Council for a number of years, and it's quite a varied role. I don't know if you can or if you can, if you want to flash back 10 years, what was a typical day in the life like in that role? And did you have one aspect of the work which you preferred over another?
It was very mixed, and you had to sort of be prepared to cover all periods of archaeology. You can't just say, oh no, I'm only interested in one period, you have to have an open mind.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed doing the agricultural environment schemes,
mm-hmm.
because it meant you could go out and meet farmers and landowners and talk about the archaeology they had on the land.
Mm-hmm.
And it's changed quite a bit now. It's not, I think the rural stewardship scheme for me was one of the best schemes for archaeology.
Mm-hmm.
And I enjoyed the forestry and going out with the Forestry Commission staff, going around sites with them. And I particularly enjoyed the aerial archaeology side. I got into that in an odd way as well. I used to bother Ian about flying, and I kept bothering him saying, "Love, I want to get up flying, can I get up with you?" And he said, "No, it's only a 2-seater, you can't get up." And then he came in one day and said, "All right, I booked a flight, have your lunch, and then you could go up flying." So I didn't get much training in what to do or anything. He said, "There's the camera, there's the maps, I booked your flight for a certain time. So go and get your lunch." So I had my lunch. I still remember what it was. And
I really hope it didn't come back up again.
You beat me to it. Yes, I got in the plane, a small Cessna, 2-seater, and took off. And it was okay to start with. I managed to get the camera going. When I opened the window, nobody told me what happens when you open the window in a small plane. So I lost the maps. They flew into the back of the plane, and I had to gravel about to try and get some back. But you have to know where the sites are. Because I didn't have a GPS at that point.
Yeah.
Then I lost the camera hood. It's up here. And then on the way back, it got very bumpy, and I lost my lunch somewhere near the brewery. So, apologies to anybody in brewery. So that was my first experience, but it was the only time I was ever sick flying, and I really, really loved doing that side of things.
Yeah. And later on, you were using helicopters, were you? Do I remember that right?
Yeah, that's right. It used to be a Cessna, either a 172 or a 150, but I can't remember. I think it was 2001 or something like that. The Civil Aviation Authority decided that archaeological reconnaissance was actually commercial, so we should be flying under a commercial license. Even though we argued and said, well, we don't sell our stuff, it's not commercial. But they stopped it, and there was no small planes almost in the whole of Britain with a commercial license. So it grounded just about everybody flying for a year. And I tried to persuade the group I was flying with before to get a commercial license, but it was too expensive and too much paperwork. So I had to hunt around, and finally one company at Edinburgh got a license in Scotland. England got one or two, but Scotland later had one. But unfortunately, it was the same commercial company that the Royal Commission flew with in Edinburgh. So inevitably, when I phoned up to book a flight, it would have been booked already by the Commission. So occasionally I managed to get it, and they flew to Dundee for me and picked me up at Dundee Airport. But I got a bit fed up with getting trumped all the time by the Commission, so I phoned, I had a word with them, and they agreed eventually that they would fly to Dundee sometimes and stop off there, and then I could get the plane. So that happened a few times. And I do remember one day, it was absolutely gorgeous summer day, we had a long dry spell. But I asked the commission boys, you know, what's it like? Have you got much? And they said, we haven't seen much at all. So we said, we don't have much hope for you finding anything. So,
Nothing like setting a challenge, yeah.
So I got in the plane and flew up towards Montrose Basin, and suddenly there were massive crop marks all around Montrose Basin.
Oh, wonderful.
And the pilot said, oh, you better not tell that lot back, they'll be mad. And I got first shot of nearly the whole of a Roman camp, just on the north side of the basin. It was great.
Oh, wonderful.
So it took great delight when I came back and let them know, actually, yes, there was a lot further up. So, yeah, it was good fun. Yeah.
And you retired from Aberdeenshire Council in 2011 with a spectacular cake, if I might just say. Featuring the skeleton from the London Lynx as well. We mentioned in the intro all of the archaeological groups and projects that you're still involved with. So has the pace of life slowed down at all during retirement? Because it doesn't seem like it. Have you got much time for anything that's not archaeology?
It's not really. Everybody keeps saying, you're not retired. And that's I said, I couldn't sit around and do nothing. That would be boring. So no, I do like to keep busy, keep working when I can. Especially, you know, the Masons March project. It's really expanded a lot more since I first started it up. And you get far more information from it now than I used to.
So what first got you interested in the Masons Marks? How did the project develop?
It was actually at Cullycan, the castle site at Cullycan started us off, because we didn't know the name of the castle there or the date of it, and we knew there had been several additions to it, and one of the additions and adaptations were a kitchen, and in the remains of the kitchen was a collapsed fireplace arch, which had 2 masons' marks on it, both the same. So when we were working on the publication of it with another friend of mine, I said, you know, I wonder if we could find anywhere else that's got these marks that might have a connection or anything like that with Cullycan. So my friend said, well, he's more into doing the research side, so Alec Mackay, he started to do some documentary research. And we found a connection between the castle and Huntly Castle through marriage. And at Huntly Castle, the mark is there as well in part of it.
Okay.
So because we had this connection, the documentary evidence of the connection with this intermarriage, we thought we could safely say that it's probably the same mason, because we've got the same dates and the same, you know, connection. So that helped that. So that was basically the start of it. And then, you know, I thought, oh, this would be quite a good project to do with some communities. So I can remember going around giving talk to, I think, about 25 different historical groups and archaeological groups over Aberdeenshire and Moray. And they all seemed to be quite interested in joining in. But in the end, I think only 5 groups actually took it up. And of these groups, they all did it in different ways, not the same way as I'd wanted them to do it. So I thought, there's only 2, I think, that actually did it in a good way. So I thought, okay, I think this is something I'm going to have to rethink again.
Yeah.
And initially, some of them were only recording just a few marks and not all marks. You know, they'd look for different marks and just take a note of them. So that was the first surveys. But as time went on, I thought, no, we could get more out of this yet. So then we expanded it, and now when we do it, it's a full survey of every single stone in a building. So we go along course by course, block by block, and we take note of where every single mark is. And then at the end, I make up a chart, and you can pull together, and you can see the different groups of masons, the dates. and also the number of marks. You can tell how it was built under contract or whether it was, piecework. So it adds more to it, and you can add to the history of the building. So, yeah, and it'll probably keep expanding more yet.
Yeah, I suppose it's been a bit hampered by COVID and the restrictions of COVID. Yeah.
It was all set to start. We've got a very interested group to start at Dunfermline Abbey, with everything all set up, ready to go, when along came COVID.
Yeah.
So it's on hold. I've been getting them to do some elevation drawings so that when we do start, we've got things ready to make it go. So
yeah.
That's
and it's kind of Scotland wide, isn't it? Have you looked at any comparisons with other countries, or is it just focusing on what's in Scotland?
I'm focusing on Scotland really at the moment because there's a lot to hear.
Yeah.
I'm not going to start going into other countries. But I have made good connection with Jennifer Alexander at Warwick University. She is well known for her work in that, and I've had meetings with her, so we have good fun at the meetings.
Yeah.
And she thinks the way I've been doing it is good, so I'm quite happy about that.
Yeah, I suppose I just wonder whether anyone had been in touch from elsewhere to say, oh, we've picked up, we've done a Google search for Mason's Marks, your project's come up, we've been looking at something in, I don't know, France, and it looks a little bit similar, is there anything like that, or is it not quite reached that level yet?
No, I haven't had foreigners yet. I've had a number of groups over here contacting me. I actually just had a Zoom group with a group in Berwick who are interested in taking it up. So once again, after COVID, I'm going to go over and train some.
Yeah. And I probably should have got you to tell us at the very start of this sort of section of do you want to tell people what a Mason's Mark actually is, in case they're completely new to this?
Stonemason's Mark. Well, it's when a stonemason is apprenticeship. He's got a long apprenticeship of about 7 years, really hard. In the medieval times, an apprentice got no pay. You only got board and lodgings, and that was it. Hours were horrendous. Weather, everything was terrible.
Health and safety, probably not very good.
But after 7 years, once he had done his work, he got to become, 2 years as the next step up. And then he got to become a mason, full mason. And at that point, he then chose his mark to mark his work, because most type work in the medieval period was piecework, where they marked the stones so they knew how many had been cut for payment purposes. So that's basically where the mark came from. Although there are the lodges that they stayed in sometimes had a mark of their own, so when they went in to do a certain building, they had to use that mark.
Okay.
As time went on, when you come into the 16th and 17th century, you start to get contract work coming in. And although you still get some masons' marks, you don't get so many, because they didn't need to mark for payment because they were getting paid through the contract anyway.
Yeah. So the individuals chose their own sort of logo, I suppose.
Their own mark, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Quite often I've found now that sometimes you find a mark very similar to each other, but it's a little addition. And the thinking is possibly that it was maybe a family working together, maybe a father and son or two brothers. So to differentiate their work, they just put a little extra mark on it.
Yeah.
And there's also, you sometimes get the same mark if the father died before the son maybe finished his apprenticeship or something. He would take over the father's mark.
Yeah.
There's still so many theories about this, because there's very little written evidence surviving about the early Masons.
Yeah.
But, I would go for that one probably. I think Jennifer Alexander would accept it as well.
Yeah. Well, what we can do is we'll put a link under the video to the Mason's Mark Project website, and if people are interested in taking part, then they can get in touch with Moira through that website. Hopefully we'll get some more community groups interested for you as well.
Well, to be prepared for hard work.
Yeah.
intense work. It's not quick in and out.
You're also, as we mentioned, currently the chair of Tayside and Fife Archaeological Committee, also known as TAFAC. So for those who don't know about TAFAC, can you tell us a little bit more about the organisation, how you got involved, and I guess, you know, if there's been any challenges for the group through COVID and what the future holds for the group?
Well, I actually, my first contact with TAFAC was when I was working in Aberdeenshire.
Okay.
Because, as you know, Aberdeenshire took over the archaeology of Angus as well as Murray. And I used to go down to TAFAC because I was invited along to give a sort of roundup of what had been happening in Angus. And so I would also take a little display along with me and put that up, and then have a short presentation of what had been found. So I think when I retired, I was invited on to join the board. Well, it's not really a board, onto the committee of TAFAC. And it's really, TAFAC covers Fife, Perth and Kinross, Angus and Dundee. It was founded in 1977, I think it was first. It's a sort of liaison group which aims to promote archaeology in the area. We also publish a journal, TAFAC, Tayside Fife Archaeological Journal, and special monologues on different sites. The journal is now available online. We no longer print it. So, you know, anybody can access the TAFAC journals. The aim of the committee really is to run a conference. We have one conference a year, usually the first Saturday in November. And it brings together individuals and groups or organisations to promote and protect the archaeology of the area.
And it's a mix of kind of academic, community and commercial archaeology, isn't it?
It
covers all.
Everything, yes.
Yeah.
It covers everything. Yeah. I mean, 2020 was the first time we've ever done a virtual conference. And it was actually really quite successful. It was interesting to take part in because I was chairing the opening of the first day. We had 2 days, and I was chairing it. So I went to do my recording first of all of the introduction. So that went fine, and then the day of that was done several days before the conference, and then the day of the conference I appeared live, of course in different clothes. So I can imagine people saying, "How did you change so?"
Quick change, yeah. Next outfit.
So yeah, and then we had all the papers were recorded, but then we had a live question and answer session at the end of it. And it went very well. And we had quite a lot of folk congratulating us on how well it went.
Yeah. It's not a membership society, is it?
It's not a membership society. I mean, I think people can become a member, but it is open.
Yeah.
You have to pay for coming to the conference, but that's it. It's a small charity, really. We're not there to make a lot of money. So, but it's quite going. It's looking as if it's going to go quite well in the future too. You know?
Yeah.
We haven't suffered really from the lockdown.
So you'd be hoping that you do an in-person conference this year, or do you think you'll do something more of a blended mix?
Yes, I think we're going to have to wait and see.
Yeah.
You know, we at least now know we can manage a virtual conference. So if need be, we can do that again. So we're not horror struck at the thought of it this time.
Yeah.
We panicked quite a bit and tried so many different types of thoughts of how we're going to do this, but we ended up resuming, and it went fine. No problem.
Yeah. I think we've touched a little bit on how COVID has affected your involvement with TAFAC, but how has it affected any of your other projects that you've been involved with, and how has it affected you? You mentioned that you've been able to do a little bit more on your research.
Yes, it's meant to have had time to actually do a lot of archiving work, as I said before. Caught up with all my own excavation stuff that never finally got into archive. That's all ready to go in now. Even all the Mason's Marks project work that I've done, that's all ready to go off. But apart from that, and not being able to actually go out and do any survey work, I've been fine. I've walked more than I've ever walked, I think, for ages. I work at the computer all morning and then go out in the afternoon if it's nice.
And are you coping with the technology change in terms of all these kind of online meetings and things?
Yeah, I have a lot of Zoom meetings now.
Yeah.
I've never used Teams before. That was more difficult coming in. But I've never actually had to set up a meeting. Everybody else has done it before.
Done it for you. Oh, okay, that's cheating, isn't
it? Yeah. But, well, you know, I don't need to.
Got people to do that for you, yeah.
Yeah, I must try and find out how to set up a Zoom meeting, actually. So.
Well, as ever, we're going to close our first part of our conversation with our favourite question. How do you ken Elgin Museum?
Well, I think when I was working for the Archaeology Service, I'd be up in Elgin occasionally if I'm passing through, and I knew Jim Ingalls, who was curator there for a while because he was at Marshall College. So if I was up in the area, I'd pop in to see Jim and see what was happening in the area. So that's really, I got to know it more.
And you chaired one of our conferences as well, our Beakers, Bodies and Bones conference. You chaired that. You stepped in for Ian at the last minute.
Oh, I think I nearly forgot that.
Yeah. What was we had it in the St Giles Church on the Plainstones.
Oh.
Yes.
That's shocking. Slipped my memory, that one. I was trying to think of what else did I do. I forgot that. Oh well.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you might have the opportunity in the future to visit us at the Elgin Museum when people are allowed to move around and see how things have changed. Yeah. Okay, so our next section features questions from our audience, and these have been sent in through social media and by email from various of our members, volunteers and friends of the museum. Our first question takes you back to aerial photography. Do you miss flying yourself? I'm assuming you don't still fly. And have you got any thoughts on new technologies being used for aerial recording, such as LiDAR, or what about drones versus aeroplanes, helicopters?
I guess I really do miss going up flying. When I retired, I thought, well, I'd like to do some in Fife. But when I looked into the insurance side of things, I no longer had a council fee. So it was going to be far too expensive.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, I can't do it. But as for technology, LiDAR is amazing. I remember the very first time I saw it was, well over 10 years ago at an aerial archaeology conference in Vienna, actually. And I just couldn't believe it when I first saw it. And I thought, finally we can strip the trees away and see what's underneath. It's a huge advance, yes.
Yeah. So you haven't thought about getting your own drone then?
No. Drones are okay. They have their uses, very useful for some things.
Yeah.
But they're limited, I think, in your range. And I still think there's nothing like the human eye to actually see the stuff. So I don't totally say, right, aerial archaeology is out the window. There's still people doing it. But yes, there's more being used for satellite imagery and all that. And it's advancing all the time. And I'm delighted. Every time I go to the conference for ARG, that's Aerial Archaeology Research Group, which is international. We travel all over Europe every year, go to different places. And to hear what some people are doing is just amazing.
Yeah. We
are actually way behind a lot of people with the LiDAR cover that we've got compared to some countries.
Yeah.
And the number of sites coming up just staggering. Yeah.
I was going to ask if you were still attending the conferences, but I seem to remember that it was like jet setting around at the lovely conferences at different.
Yes, still going. Yeah.
So I take it they were online last year, were they as well?
We had to have some online.
Yeah.
But I did get to last year in March. I got to the site because I was treasurer of ARG. I always went to look at the new where the conference was going to be.
It's a great excuse for a holiday, yeah.
I was working, honest.
Work out, yeah.
No, I had to, because I paid the bills and things, I had to be there to make sure. And because I've been to so many, I know what's needed.
Yeah.
So we got to, it was going to be in Trondheim in Norway.
Oh, lovely.
I was there in March. There was snow, a lot of snow on the ground. But I just got back when shortly afterwards we went into first lockdown.
Yeah.
And that was it. We didn't get to Trondheim. So we keep thinking we're going to get this year. So let's wait and see if we get there this year or not.
Yeah. Our next question. Where have you recorded Mason's marks in Moray? And are there any marks that appear in multiple places in Moray? That's an awful lot of M's there, so be careful.
I have done some sites in Moray. One or two other people did them and sent me in the marks. But I've done Elgin Cathedral, some of it. And but the two West Towers haven't been done inside. I didn't have time to do them when I was there, but somebody else said they would try and do it, but I've never heard back, so I might have to go back myself sometime.
Yeah.
Done Burghley Castle. That was good, getting right in and doing the whole thing, which had supposedly been done before by an archaeological company, but they missed so many marks.
Yeah.
So I'm glad I went back and got in. Where else? Kinloss Abbey. And I think most of the other ones were somebody else reported in.
I seem to remember seeing some at Duffus Castle.
Where? Oh yes,
Duffus,
I did Duffus. Yes, I did Duffus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's some that you can really see quite clearly there, aren't there? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I've done Duffus. I forgot I'd been there too. Yeah.
Yeah. So our viewers can keep an eye out if they're visiting Duffus Castle for Mason's marks. I think there's some just in the main doorway and in the toilet in the Gardeloo.
Yeah, if you go on site on the website, you'll see where they are.
Okay. You have excavated at some fascinating sites. Do you have a favourite?
Oh, goodness me. Favourite site? I guess Cullycarroll will always be my favourite site because it started me off and had so many different periods. I quite enjoyed doing my excavation at Drum Castle because it was a unique opportunity to excavate above ground.
Yeah.
You don't get that chance very often in the hall up above in the fourth story. So that was interesting. Yeah.
Let's see. Our next question is. I need to make sure I read this one right because it's a long one. Okay. Have you any thoughts about the pentacle as a Mason's mark, a Masonic sign, but also as a Pictish symbol, vide the two in the entrance to the sculptor's cave at Cowsey, which is accepted as Pictish, but also the one in the interior of the cave, i.e. this one is unrelated to the distribution of the Pictish symbols? I hope that means something to you.
No, it doesn't. I've only come across star shapes. I haven't actually ever come across a star within a circle, as was explained as a pentacle. But there's always this link, between the present Masonic lodges and the Masons.
Yeah.
Yes, the stonemasons started off lodges as shelters for them, which went on to become a bit more. And I think the great link between Masons and Masonic lodges is William Shaw in the the 17th century, the King's Master Mason. I mean, things must have been pretty bad in the Masonic trade because he felt he had to write a few rules and regulations, which are really interesting to read. I mean, there must have been health and safety issues then too, because he brings it up. And, you know, like today you have your rogue builders and that. So
Yeah.
they had the same then, because there were complaints about people starting a job and taking too much on. If ever anybody wants to do it, have a look online. I think you can see the William Shaw rules, regulations, the Shaw statutes as they're known. It's interesting reading.
Yeah. I suppose there's some symbols people might think are Mason's marks, but are more of what are called apotropaic, like those kind of compass design flowers that you see maybe more on lead work or sometimes on stonework. There's not all marks that you see on stone are Mason's marks in the same way, are they?
No, you can occasionally get marks which are actually sort of construction marks showing, sometimes a mason would put a drawing on a wall to show them how to build something. Mm-hmm. You've also got your marks when you're lining up stones, especially on archways. Mm-hmm. And, that's that. I don't tend to record graffiti much. There are other people who do record.
Yeah, there's oh gosh, what are they called? There is a graffiti recording project, isn't there? Yes. I can't remember what it's called, but
no. I don't. I mean, I think maybe
Scotland's Urban Past, they record graffiti, don't they? Yeah.
But I don't like to get sidetracked because I'm really trying to build up the story of the building itself.
Yes.
And work out, the different areas that different groups of masons worked in and how they were paid and things like that.
Yeah.
And I've tried to do a bit of documentary research to see if I can get the names of masons with dates and things as well. And I have managed that occasionally in some places.
Yeah.
I think the best one was probably, well, it was two, but the best one was probably by Lord Southesk at Kinnaird Castle near Brechin. Mm-hmm. Actually still has an original document dated 1555, which he showed me when I went down, and it gives the names of the stonemasons, the work they had to do, how they were going to get paid, and at the bottom of the document is their marks.
Oh, wonderful.
They were illiterate, and so they put their marks. So that was great, getting the names, the dates, and then the marks, and then they went to see the older bit of the building, and there were some of the marks of these two masons. So it was a direct link, and you don't get that very often.
No, that sort of human connection, isn't it?
When you get it,
it's real.
Yeah, and that's what I keep hoping to come more. Find more of that to get people doing research for me. It's hard to get people to do research.
Research can be fun, so if people are interested who are watching this, get in touch with Moira through the Mason's
No pay though. I don't have money for the project. You don't get paid.
No pay. Okay, it's all voluntary. No. Okay, so our next question: you started at art school, as you mentioned. Is art still part of your life? Is it? Do you still sort of do arts and crafts at all, or is it just behind you?
No, it's not behind me. I still do some. My latest artistic exploit was for my grandson, actually. One of my grandsons had written it was for a project at school. He was to write a story, but he wrote it such a big long story. The teacher said, "It's too long, Callum, turn that into a book." So it was about a dragon. Mm-hmm. So I got a call saying, "Would you illustrate it for me?" So I've been illustrated his book for him.
Oh, super.
So I get that. But it helps me when I'm, doing archaeology or anything like that. I've done a number of drawings of artifacts and things like that. So it comes in handy.
Yeah.
So it's not left me totally.
No.
And I did buy myself some paints and easel and that, but I've never got round to using.
Too busy doing the archaeology stuff.
Yes, I have. Yeah. I will get back to it, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. There's too many Mason's marks to still record, isn't there?
Oh, yeah.
And our last question from the audience is, what's the strangest place you've recorded Mason's marks?
Strange place. There are two places. I didn't actually record them myself, but I got them sent to me for the project because I keep in touch with Steve Lisco, who's Fife archaeologist. So if he's doing anything, he lets me know. And sometimes I'll go along and work with him. But on these two bits that he sent me, it was really interesting. One is it's just off Kouros. On the foreshore at Kouros, there is part of a circular feature which was actually at the top of a shaft down to a coal pit down below. And it's, I think it was 17th century. And there were one or two Mason's marks on it.
Okay.
And I've never heard of that sort of thing before. The only other strange one was where it's no longer there. It's under the new Forth Bridge, the crossing, Queensferry crossing. The small island there had a light beacon on it. And when it was taken to pieces, they found Mason's marks on them.
Oh, wow.
So I've got them. I think they're on the project page as well. So they're there.
Yeah. And when we spoke to John Borland in a previous interview, he mentioned an encounter in a bell tower, in a clock tower. You haven't had any similar problems with noonday clocks going off, noonday bells?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Which one was it? In Dundee, working in the church there in the centre of Dundee. It was okay in the lower floors, but as we came up near the bells, every time it was getting near the hour, we had to shoot all the way down to get away from the noise. The noise is absolutely deafening. So you got fit there because you're up and down the stairs every hour. Part 1 o'clock was okay, but from 2 onwards, and you wanted out for 12 o'clock.
Definitely out the way for 12 o'clock, yeah.
Yeah. So, yes, you need earplugs really for that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I haven't come across any creepy things or anything like that doing Mason's marks.
Good. Brilliant. So, as ever, we're going to finish up with our 7 quick questions. These are sort of quick fire questions that we ask all of our guests, and we're just looking for kind of quick fire answers. I think they're kind of easy questions, but some of our interviewees have really struggled, and so it's just really like kind of the first thing that pops into your head, I suppose, in response to these. So question 1, what's the one thing you wish you had known when you began your career?
My career? Goodness, one thing. Oh, that's a how your neck gets sore looking up. I think, yeah.
Okay, question 2. What is your favourite film or book about or featuring archaeology, heritage, historic environment, things like that?
Probably A Night at the Museum.
Oh, yes.
Because I keep hoping one of the things will say, oh, these archaeologists get it wrong when they don't know anything. They say it's ritual or funerary. And I want them to tell me, well, what is it then?
Okay, question 3. What site or find from anywhere in the world do you wish you'd had the chance to excavate? From any period, and whether it's like a ancient discovery or a more recent discovery.
Oh, the Galloway Hoard, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
That would be a nice one.
Yeah.
Question 4. What profession other than your own would you like to have attempted?
Well, when I was young, I always wanted to be a vet. being brought up on a farm. But my father always said it's not a job for a woman. And I thought it was quite ironic because several years later we actually had a woman vet. And he said, well, that serves you right.
Okay, question 5. You're doing well so far. What's the strangest question you've been asked about archaeology by a member of the public?
I don't know. It's probably a typical one. Have you found any gold?
Oh, yes.
It's quite often when you're digging.
What's the other one? Have you found any dinosaurs? That's the other one, isn't it?
Yeah. Or what are you digging a hole for?
Yeah. Okay, question 6. What is the one common myth about your profession that you would like to debunk?
Common myth? Gosh, is there a common myth? It's interesting, it's exciting, it's not boring. A lot of people think archaeology is boring. It's got boring bits, but it's interesting, and it's about people, it's about your past, your ancestors, relatives, and you wouldn't be here, if we wouldn't know how they lived if we didn't study archaeology a bit.
Yeah. Good answer. Okay, and question 7, the last question. What is your must-visit archaeological site or museum?
I would like to go to Petra.
Okay.
Yes, that's definitely.
That on your list. I thought you would have been there.
No, I nearly went once. I was sort of arranging to go on a special tour, and then I found out that I was the only person to be going on it with this gentleman. So I thought, there's no way I'm going camping out. So no, I haven't been yet.
Oh, I ate some tinned fruit cocktail at Petra. I went. That was a highlight of it. And some cola at the very, very top of the very highest point on the site, because it was a very hot day and a very steep climb. And that was the highlight, was getting a tin of cola at the top of the climb.
Oh well, maybe someday I might make it yet.
Yeah. Well, congratulations, you made it through our 7 quick questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Really caught me.
Thank you once again for joining us for Elgin Museum in Conversation. It's been really interesting to talk with you and good to catch up, and I hope you've enjoyed the conversation as well.
I have. Thank you very much for even thinking of me.
Thank you.
I wish you all well. Maybe, hopefully see you again at some point in the future.
Fingers crossed.
Okay, thank you.